Good morning. My name is Ignacio Sanchez. I am Deputy Director of the Spanish Climate Change Office within the Ministry for Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenge. I am going to present our fifth biennial report, putting the emphasis on the latest developments about our climate policy in Spain. Okay, so as you know, Spain is a member state of the European Union, and climate and energy policies are shaped by this fact. We see here the EU and Spanish greenhouse gas emissions targets for 2020 and 2030. The greenhouse gas emission reduction target is set at the EU level, and then there is a split between emissions trading and non-emissions trading sectors. The recently adopted target for the EU is minus 55% in 2030 with respect to 1990, which corresponds to a reduction of 62% in ETS and 40% in non-ETS sources. Finally, an emission reduction target is set at the national level for every member state, and in accordance with the EU legislation, our national target for 2020 was minus 10% with respect to 2005, and for 2030 it is increased up to 37.7%. In addition, at the bottom of the slide, you can see national specific targets that are set in our law on climate change and energy transition. And all these targets are fully aligned with the European ones and are legally binding. Now, here we see some indicators that provide useful information about the evolution of the Spanish economy in relation to greenhouse gas emissions and energy consumption. The interest of this slide is to show to what extent energy consumption and emissions are decoupling from economic growth in the case of Spain. And now let's see some detail about emissions trends and projections. In this slide, we have the total greenhouse gas emission series until 2020 and projections until 2040. And at the right of the slide, you can also see the breakdown in 2020 by main inventory categories and gases. This graph is very similar actually to the previous one, but it shows the two projection scenarios with the system measures and with the additional measures. And there are also some more detail in the breakdown of emissions by sectors. You can see that the biggest reductions are achieved in the power generation sector and in the transport sector. Now, let's have a look at the emissions trends in the main blocks, first on non-ETS and ETS sectors, and then we will have a look also at the LUCF sector. In the case of non-ETS sources, emissions are compared with the relevant target for 2020, which is set at minus 10% with respect to 2005. And as you can see, this target was clearly overachieved. With regard to 2030, the target is minus 37.7%. And here, while with the system measure scenario, we foresee a gap, with the additional measure scenarios, we expect to comply. Also here in this slide, at the right part, we see the performance of ETS sources in Spain, and emissions have been reduced by 54% by 2020, with deeper reductions in the power generation sectors. In relation to ETS also, there are important changes for the immediate future, and I wanted to highlight here a few of them. First, the increase in ambition translates into a significant reduction of the volume of allowances that will be issued every year. And also, most importantly, there are new sectors that will be covered by the system in the near future. So first, we have the maritime transport, which will be included already in 2024. And then also we have a new emissions trading system that will be set up for buildings, road transport, and small industry. This one will start fully operating in 2027, but monitoring of emissions will begin already the next year. And finally, A new carbon pricing instrument will be applied to carbon-intensive products that are imported into the EU. And the pilot phase, which implies only MRV, has already been launched and will apply until the end of 2025. On LULUCF, and in line with the EU policies, there are different rules that are applied in the first and the second halves of 2021 and 2030. The first period is a transition one, which rules that are similar to those of the Kyoto Protocol, and here we expect to fulfill our commitment, which is based on the no debit rule. In the second half, 2026 to 2030, there are new rules and an objective for the EU of net removals equal to 310 million tons, which translates into the case of Spain to net removals of something more than 40 million tons. In the graph, we see that an effort beyond the with additional measures is required, and we are currently looking at new measures to see how to meet this objective. In this slide, we see the comprehensive package of national elements that constitutes our strategic framework and which have been developed in the recent years. We have a law on climate change and energy transition. We have a national energy and climate plan, the national adaptation plan, the just transition strategy, and also the long-term decarbonization strategy. And in addition, there is a broad set of complementary laws, roadmaps, strategies, and other elements, and a few of them are shown in the slides. Also, I think it is important to say something about our national energy and climate plan, which plays a prominent role in this framework. It is being updated now with the purpose of setting more ambitious targets for 2030. And just as an example, we wanted to present in this slide some figures about power generation capacity. As you see, coal capacity is completely phased out, and while wind capacity is expected to multiply by 2.4 and photovoltaics by 9. This is when comparing 2030 with the figures of 2019. Action in cities, of course, is also of paramount importance, and in this regard, the EU mission label is an acknowledgement of climate action by cities, which have to develop an action plan as well as an investment strategy in relation to climate neutrality. Up to now, only 10 municipalities have obtained this label, and several of them are located in Spain, as it is shown in the slide. Now, an important innovation on how to tackle climate action has been set up recently in Spain with the creation of a climate citizen assembly. It is constituted by 100 people who represent Spanish diversity, and they have been working during 2.5 years. And as a result of this work, they have issued 172 recommendations, which were presented to the Parliament in Spain. On organic crop, I would also like to say a few words. One of the objectives, actually, of the European Green Deal is to reach the goal of 25% of agricultural land being used for this organic production by 2030, and this practice emits fewer greenhouse gas emissions and, of course, has other environmental benefits. As you see in the figure, Spain is one of the most advanced countries in this area within the EU. Now, very relevant also in the current context of Spain, it is the potential of our recovery, transformation, and resilience plan to boost climate action. This plan will mobilize almost 70 billion euros, of which 40% has to go to green transition areas. Within this plan, the so-called PERTEs are especially relevant. PERTEs are strategic projects for economic recovery and transformation. And here in the slide, we can see a few examples of them which have a very prominent component on climate. So we have the PERTE era, which is about renewable energies, hydrogen and storage, also the PERTE VEC, about electric and connected vehicle, and the PERTE on industrial decarbonization. Also in the slide, there are some figures about the expected investment in each case. Now, some of the main challenges that we have identified are the ones presented here. We see that we had to progress in cross-cutting governance and alignment with other strategies, that also we had to implement policy instruments necessary to achieve our 2030 targets, and that it is very, very important to get full support of society to climate action, which requires paying particular attention to just transition measures. Concluding this presentation, I would like to highlight that Spain has overachieved its 2020 greenhouse gas mitigation target, that now we are in the process of implementing new and ambitious targets for 2030, which have been established in line with our goal of climate neutrality by 2050. Also, Spain has a comprehensive climate strategy framework that requires continuous follow-up, monitoring, and periodic updates. And finally, that we are in the process of implementing our recovery, transformation, and resilience plan, which offers an excellent opportunity to boost investment in the green transition. Well, that's all for now. Thank you very much for taking the interest in this presentation. Bye.